It was no surprise to me that she was the one who caught on. Back in my room, I was returning the coat when I noticed someone had been poking around in the closet. My shoes were scattered every which way, a hat box knocked over. That closet wasn't just any walk in closet. It had once been a hallway between the master bedroom and Carlos's study, but we had closed it off on both sides in order to make a closet you could enter from either room. It was almost always locked on account of we kept everything valuable in there. I suppose at the back of our minds, Carlos and I always knew that one day we would have to leave the island in a hurry and that it would be handy to have our cash and valuables on hand. And so I was fit to be fried. I'm thinking fit to be tied, seeing signs that someone had been rifling through our hiding place. Then it came to me who our intruder had been. Yo. Earlier, I had seen her in Carlos's study looking over the medical books her father let her play with. She must have gone in our closet, and that's how she had figured out the fur was just a fur. I was ready to call her in and give her a large serving of my right hand when I saw that the floorboards close to the study side had been pried open and not exactly wedged back in place. I crawled in under the clothes with a flashlight and lifted one of those boards. It was my turn to go pale. Stashed inside and wrapped in one of my good towels was a serious-looking gun. You can bet when Carlos came home, I threatened to leave him right then and there if he didn't tell me what he was up to. I found out more than I wanted to know. No harm done, Carlos kept saying. I'll just move it to another location, and he did, wrapping it inside my fur coat and laying the bundle on the back of the seat of the Buick like he was going off to sell that coat after all. He came back late that night, the coat over his arm, and it wasn't until the next morning as I was hanging it up that I found the oil stains on the lining. They looked just like dry blood. After that, I was a case all right. Nights? I was up to 4 sleeping pills to numb myself into a few hours of the skimpiest sleep. Days, I took Valium to ease that jumpy feeling. It was hell on the wheels of our marriage, having me down so much of the time. Worst were the migraines I got practically every afternoon. I'd have to lie down in that small, hot bedroom with the jalousies angled shut and a wet towel on my face. Far off, I could hear the kids yelling in their bedrooms, and I'd wish I could squeeze that bear trick one more time to terrify them into silence. Lots of worries went through my pounding head those afternoons. One of them that kept hammering away was that Yo had been snooping around in that closet. If she had seen that hidden gun, it was just a matter of time before she'd tell someone about it. Already I could see the sim coming to the door to drag us away. One afternoon, when I just couldn't stand it anymore, I leapt out of my bed and called down the hall for her to come to my room this instant. She must have thought she was going to get it about all the loud bickering coming from their bedroom. She hurried down the hall, already defending herself that she had plucked off Fifi's baby doll's head only because Fifi had asked her to. Hush now, I said. It's not about that. That stopped her short. She hung back at the door looking around my bedroom, like maybe she wasn't so sure the bear was nothing but her mother in a fur coat after all. I gave her a little pep talk in a soft voice, the way you talk to babies as you stroke them till their eyes drift shut. I told her Papa Dios in heaven could see into every one of our souls. He knew when we were good and when we were bad, when we lied and when we told the truth. That he could have asked us to do whatever he wanted, but out of all the 100 million things, he had only chosen 10 holy commandments for us to obey. And one of those 10 was honor thy father and mother, which meant you shouldn't lie to them. So always, always, you must tell your mommy the truth. I served her a big smile, of which she only returned a little slice back. She knew something else was coming. She sat on the bed watching me, just as she had seen through the fur to her mother. Now she was looking through her mother to the scared woman inside. I let out a long sigh and said, "Now, Kuka, darling, Mommy wants you to tell her what things you saw when you went looking in the closet the other day." "You mean the big closet?" she said, pointing down the passageway that led from the master bedroom to the walk-in closet right through to her father's study. "That very one," I said. The migraine was hammering away inside my head, building a big house of pain. She looked at me like she knew that admitting she had been snooping would get her into a closet full of trouble, so I promised her that telling the truth this time would make her my and God's little darling. "I saw your coat," she said. "That's very good," I said. "That's what I mean. What else did you see in Mommy's closet?" "Your funny shoes," she remarked. She meant the heels with little holes pockmarked into the leather. "Excellent," I said. "Mommy's darling. What else?" She went through that whole closet with the full inventory of practically every piece of clothing I owned. My God, I thought I'd give her another decade and she could work for the SIM. I lay there listening because what else could I do? If she hadn't really seen anything, I didn't want to put any ideas in her head. That one had a mouth from here to China, going the long way like Columbus's ships. "How about the floor?" I asked stupidly. "Did you see anything in the floor?" She shook her head in a way that didn't convince me. I went back over the 10 Commandments and not lying to thy mother, and still I couldn't flush any more information from her except my monogrammed hankies and, oh yes, my nylons in a pleated plastic case. I finally made her promise that if she remembered anything else, she should come and tell Mommy directly and no one else. "It will be our little secret," I whispered to her. Just as she was slipping out the door, she turned around and said a curious thing. "Mommy, the bear won't be coming anymore." It was as if she were stating her part of our bargain. "Honey Kuka," I said. "Remember, Mommy was the one playing the bear. It was just a silly joke, but no," I promised her. "That bear's gone for good, okay?" She nodded her approval. As soon as the door latched shut, I cried into my pillow. My head was hurting so much. I missed not having nice things, money, and freedom. I hated being at the mercy of my own child. But in that house, we were all at the mercy of her silence from that day on. Isn't a story a charm? All you have to say is, "And then we came to the United States. And with that, and then you skip over 4 more years of disappearing friends, sleepless nights, house arrest, narrow escape, and then you've got 2 adults and 4 wired-up kids in a small, dark apartment near Columbia University." Yo must have kept her mouth shut, or no charm would have worked to get us free of the torture chambers we kept telling the immigration people about so they wouldn't send us back. Not being 100% sure we would get to stay, that was the hardest part at the beginning. Even the problem with the English language seemed like a drop in a leaky bucket then. It was later that I got to thinking English was the hardest thing of all for me. But believe me, back then at the beginning, I had my hands too full to be making choices among our difficulties. Carlos was morose. All he could think about was the compañeros he had left behind. I kept asking him what else he could have done but to stay to die with them. He was studying like cats and dogs for his license exam. We were living on the low end of the hog off what little savings we had left, and there was no money coming in. I was worried how I was going to pay for the warm clothes my kids would be needing once the cold weather set in. The last thing I needed was their whining and fighting. Every day it was the same question. When are we going to go back? Now that we were far away and I wasn't afraid of their blurting things out, I tried to explain. But it was as if they thought I was lying to them with a story to make them behave. They would listen, but as soon as I was done, they'd start in again. They wanted to go back to their cousins and uncles and aunts and the maids. I thought they would feel more at home once school began, but September, October, November, December passed by, and they were still having nightmares and nagging me all the long days that they wanted to go back, go back, go back, go back.